Tony, I want to be in a cocktail contest. What's the first step?
Well, the first step is to understand what the cocktail competition is all about, who the sponsor is, the style of cocktail competition. So often bartenders don't read the rules. We need to develop our recipe, but until we read the rules and understand what is required, it's difficult to get started.
So if I want to make a homemade ingredient, I need to read the rules.
Absolutely, because every competition is going to be slightly different. Could be as simple as, is it a long drink, is it a dessert drink, is it an aperitif drink? Who is the sponsor? What is the total amount of ounces that I can use in my drink? How many ingredients can I use? So read the rules, understand the rules, and then set out to create your recipe.
Now, what if I want to compete and the contest actually goes to Europe? Does that change things up at all?
Just slightly, because an international competition sanctioned under the IBA, you'd want to create your recipe in centiliters, not ounces. Where in the United States, anything for the USBG would be represented in ounces.
Okay, so I understand centiliters and I understand ounces, but to get that conversion, can I turn 1.5 ounces into, I don't know, 0.364 centiliters? I mean, it's confusing at that point.
It gets a little confusing. It's better if you know it's going to be an international competition to actually create the recipe in centiliters. It doesn't transfer exactly from ounces.
Great, so Tony, now I've got my recipe. What about garnish? How do I prepare for my garnishes?
Well, that's a good question, David, because you never want to underestimate the importance of a garnish. You want to tie the garnish in with the other ingredients in the drink, but you want to make sure that they're natural, edible ingredients, that they're not branded or logoed in any way, and consider the visual as well as the aromatics that the garnish provide for the cocktail.
That makes sense. So say I've got to make 5 drinks. How many garnishes do I make, and how much time do I actually have?
Well, you'll have 15 minutes in the office prior to coming to the stage to prepare your garnishes. So the garnish should be well thought out, but it should be something that you can execute in a timely fashion. And for 5 drinks, I always recommend making at least 7 garnishes. That way, if you have an accident at the stage, you've got a backup.
So Tony, it's competition day. I need to pack my bag of tricks. What do I bring with me?
Well, David, I always assume they're not going to have anything, so I bring everything. I bring my own beakers, I bring a garnish plate, I bring plenty of spoons, I bring all the tools that I need to execute the cocktail I'm going to prepare.
But Tony, Boston shakers, surely every bar has Boston shakers.
How often have you picked up a Boston and the tin is bent or out of round and you shake and it leaks? You can't break the seal to get the glass off. So make sure you have tools that you're comfortable with, that work well for you, and you know are going to perform. From glassware to straws to side towels. I bring it all, Dave.
So for your cocktail today, what did you bring with you?
Well, again, I've laid out everything I need to execute my cocktail, and I've checked it twice, because the last thing you want to do is show up at the bench and be missing something. Or in the case of the Hawthorns, you've noticed I've got 2. What happens if I drop one?
So you got an extra.
I got an extra.
That's smart.
So I've laid out everything I need to execute the cocktail that I'm presenting at today's competition.
Now, Tony, glassware. What if I want to bring my own glassware with me?
Well, that's something you need to consult the rules for, because if you can, absolutely. The glass, the vessel, is a crucial ingredient in the overall presentation of the drink. Some competitions, though, are going to specify that they will supply the glassware. All right, David, I've prepared my garnishes, I've squeezed my juices, made my syrups and purees, buffed my tools, and polished my glassware. Now I'm ready to load my tray.
Wait, Tony, you did all that in 15 minutes?
The 15 minutes only is the requirement on the garnish preparation.
Okay.
I got there a little earlier. I squeezed and filtered my fresh lime juice. I made my syrup and I made my puree, buffed out all my glasses. Now we're ready to load our tray so we can go out to the stage.
Oh, sounds great. How does this work?
Well, again, having a checklist to make sure that I have everything that I'm going to need to execute the drink. And then we want to make sure that we don't overcrowd the tray. So we're going to utilize the shaker tin to house the shaker glass. And we're also going to then add our strainers into the glass.
Tony, I'm sorry. I noticed you're not touching anything with your fingers. You're using the napkin. What's up?
Well, again, it's much more important to do that when you're on stage, but if you get in the habit of not handling anything that's going to come in contact with the drink, it's just it's better practice.
That makes good sense.
It's good technique. So then we have our glasses, which again have already been buffed and polished, even though when I get on stage, I'm going to polish them again for the technical judge. So make sure that all fits. And again, you can see I have extra spoons. A little tip, whenever you're using a fresh puree or a fresh juice, you always want to have a spoon to stir it. Fresh juices are going to separate, so we're just going to go ahead and put those in. The simple syrup doesn't require one. Place those on the tray as well. I have my opener for my soda water, and again, always make sure you have your sodas really cold. This goes for champagne or any type of sparkling wine as well. Our spoon that we're going to need to incorporate the soda into the drink. We have our folded side towels, our straws. We have a place for everything. And finally, our garnishes are going to go right there. So now that I can comfortably carry the tray from the office to the stage.
Tony, the tray's here. We're at the competition site. What's next?
Well, what you want to do is you want to arrange your bench, your working bench, and you want it to be comfortable for you. This should be well rehearsed in advance, but of course there might be some adjustments that you need to make. So the first thing we're going to do is just really kind of set it up so that you have a good working environment. So we'll place our garnishes. We have our puree, our juice, our syrup. We don't want to crowd the actual work area. We'll get our and then I'd like to put down a napkin on the side just to place our tools on. So again, we have plenty of room.
Now, Tony, I notice you're using a napkin a lot to touch these items. Why not? What's wrong with your hands?
Well, again, you don't want your fingers to ever come in contact with any part of a bar tool or glass that is going to come in contact with the drink you're going to serve your guest. So the handle is fine, obviously, hence the name handle, to handle it. But anything that's going to be close to the drink itself, we want to handle it with a napkin, a side towel. Now, as we mentioned, in the office, I've already buffed my glasses, but just again, you want to show your style back here, that you're confident, that you're secure in your technique, and that your glasses, you've thought out everything, are well buffed, and you do that for the judges. I'm trying to arrange it so that I'm not going to crowd myself, that I'm going to alleviate any potential mistakes.
Now, is there a judge judging you now?
No, at this point, the judge is there, so they're watching, but technically they're not judging you.
So you're putting on a good show right now.
Absolutely, because he's making his decision on my professionalism before we even start the actual competition. So once you get on stage, hence stage, you're on stage.
Wow.
So be aware of that. All right, so now we have our side towels, we have our chilled soda. Set that here, get everything out of the way. And the next thing I would do is ice my glasses. That doesn't require starting the time. So we're going to go ahead and ice those.
Tony, that's great. You got all this ice right here, but what's that ice over there for?
Ah, good question, David. You never know for sure what you're going to walk into. You might have a nice well with this type of ice, or you may just have a small bucket of ice set up next to your bench. So then this ice, I would use ice tongs. So be prepared if it's a larger cubed ice in a bucket that you have ice tongs, or that the ice tongs are set there. And a very good point about ice is the first thing you want to do when you approach the bench and set up is check your ice. Make sure the ice is cold, it's dry, it's not wet ice, and that you've got plenty of it to execute your drink.
So if I'm not happy with the ice I have, what do I do?
If you're not happy with the ice that you have, you make that note to the technical judge, and he or she then will make sure that you get fresh ice. All right. We have our glasses chilled. I'm in a comfortable situation here. I'm going to check my bottles, make sure that I have what I need for my drink, and that I have enough to execute 5 cocktails, that the bottles are opened.
Now, why does it matter if the bottles are open now or at the time of the contest?
Well, again, when you're competing, you want to alleviate any potential errors. Anything that you have a cap that you can't get off and the clock is running, you're wasting valuable time. So now I know that I have the product that I need. I have enough of it. The bottles are open. I'm feeling very, very. Oh.
What about pour spouts? I mean, isn't that what bartenders use, is pour spouts?
Well, there's a lot of personal choices that can be made. For me, I like to pour it from the bottle. But if you do choose to use a pour spout, this would be the time to install it. And you always want to install it flag to the left so that when you pour with your right hand, the label of the bottle will always be facing the audience and the judges. So this, again, much like a jigger, it's a personal choice.
Speaking of preferences, what about jiggers? I noticed you didn't have a jigger here.
It is a personal preference. I don't use the jigger. I've trained myself on the glass. And again, David, I've practiced this probably 50 times.
Oh, so you're not making it for the first time. You've done this before.
Oh, no. This is all well rehearsed. I've set up my station. I've practiced. I've hit my measurements. I know the exact size of the glass so that when I show up, it's game time.
So the station's all set up. We're ready to compete. Would you please walk us through the process of how you actually compete in a cocktail contest?
Absolutely. I'm ready. I'm confident. I'm prepared. I signal to the technical judge that I'm ready. They start the clock. Once the clock starts, first thing we're going to do is we're going to chill our shakers. So we add fresh ice, and again, every motion should be well thought out with the smile. And then we discard the spent ice. So we have a first shaker well chilled. You always want to start with a cold mixing glass, mixing tin.
So I noticed you discarded the ice. Where did you discard it? Did you just dump back into the ice well?
No, you never want to dump the spent ice back into the ice well you're working from. We have a side sink right here. If a side sink isn't available, you want to ask for a bucket, a dump bucket. You never want to dump your spent ice back into your ice well. All right, now I always begin with my sweet and sour and least expensive ingredients. I'm going to take a side towel just to catch any drips, and you always want to present the ingredients to the audience and to the technical judge. No need to explain to the judge what you're doing. They have your recipe. So we're just going to add our fresh squeezed lime juice. And you notice, Dave, that I stirred the juice because the fresh juice will separate, so that's why I have the spoon. Now, when I'm done with an ingredient, I like to get it out of the way, making my station as clutter-free as possible. Next comes our simple syrup. And I'm just using that side towel to catch any potential drip.
And it's nice, the towel actually frames the carafe.
Yeah. Stirring our fresh mango puree. And I'm measuring the amount on the side of the glass. And again, that comes from practicing many, many times. All right, next comes our modifying spirit. We want to present that to the audience and to the technical judge. And always pouring with the label facing out.
Tony, looks like you've done this before.
This is not my first trip to the rodeo. All right. And you always want to end up with the sponsor's brand and make just a little extra show of that product.
Tony, I got a question for you. I noticed that the towel you're wiping with it is actually stained now. I've noticed that there is some marks on that. What would happen if those drops actually went onto this napkin here?
That's the purpose of having the napkin down on the bar counter, is to alert the judge to any spills. And if I do spill, I'm going to lose a point. So on the towel, no problem. On the napkin on the bar top, you're going to lose a point. So now we re-ice our shaker. And time becomes an issue here. So you have two choices. You can either dispose of the ice that you have chilling your glasses, or what I like to do is I just pour for the judge the excess water. Now I'm going to place the glasses in front of the audience.
So off to the side there's your staging area, but now you're putting them up for the actual cocktail presentation.
Exactly.
All right, it's all coming together, Tony.
Because when I'm done, all I want to have on my bench are my 5 finished cocktails. We're finished with that. So then we can just double check that we don't have any extra water in our tin.
Now, Tony, these cocktail contests, they can be a little nerving. Are you having fun when you do these things?
Oh, that you can't help being nervous. But remember, it's just like working behind your bar. You got to have fun. And the judge is going to pick up on that as well as the audience. So.
I see a smile there, Tony.
Hey, if we're not having fun doing this, we're in the wrong profession. Now taking my side towel again, making sure that we start from the left and go to the right. And you ideally only want to pour once. Finishing on the left. Snap of the wrist so I don't drip. Presenting to the judge my empty tin. And again, out of the way.
Tony, why do you pour each of them halfway? Why not just fill them up to the top and then move on to the next drink?
Well, again, I want to have 5 consistent drinks. So if one shaker is a little off the other shaker, then this is going to make all 5 drinks consistent.
There's a smile again.
All right, and then starting on the left.
So you're going the opposite direction now.
Yeah. And if we've done and measured everything correctly, when we get to the last shaker, oh, just that last drip. And we present that to the judge as well.
So Tony, what happens if you've actually miscalculated and you actually have cocktail left inside there? What happens?
You're going to lose a point. If you've poured the drink, over poured or under poured, you're going to lose a point. So we have our drinks not quite finished yet. Finally, we're going to add just a spritz of soda, and you always want to have a spoon so you can incorporate that soda into the drink and it doesn't just float on top. And again, remember that the soda was well chilled in advance.
It's a great color. It's a beautiful drink, Tony.
Well, again, you're going to be judged on the appearance, the flavor, the aroma, the creativity. All of these things are going to participate in your overall score. All right, next we have our garnishes, and as you can see, I've prepared extra garnishes. You never want to handle the garnishes. You want to use tongs. And again, this should be all very well rehearsed in advance. We've got extra just in case I happen to drop one.
But you wouldn't do that now, would you, Tony?
Well, you can never be too prepared. A little spiral of orange. At this point, you should probably hear the timekeeper saying 30 seconds. And
So they let you know how much time you have left.
yeah, as you start to get close to finish, the timekeeper will alert you of the remaining time.
Well, Tony, what happens if he's going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you haven't finished your drink yet?
Well, at this point, it's better to take a point by handling the straws than it would be to have the penalty for overtime.
So it's better to touch the straws with your fingers than it is to actually go over the 7 or 5 minutes, whatever they've given you.
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do, and again, this comes down to being well rehearsed, is go over time. And the final thing is to present your cocktail to the audience, to the jury, to the judge.
So when you present the drink to the judge, that actually is when it stops the clock?
As soon as you present it to the judge, they'll stop the time.
Wow. The USBG and I thank you so very much.
Oh,
Great job. you.